Hi everyone, welcome back to the homestead. I'm going to be making some sourdough bread this morning. This is a foolproof sourdough bread recipe because it has yeast in it. So even if your sourdough starter may not be as active as you would like it to, maybe it's still pretty fresh, it's okay. The yeast is going to compensate for that and is going to help it rise. This is just going to be a delicious recipe for you. I fed my sourdough starter last night, so it is good and hungry right now. You can probably see how it rose and then kind of collapsed, so that's a very good sign. So I'm going to go ahead and stir it up really well. Make sure that it collapses on itself, and then measure out 2 cups of sourdough starter. And I have 1 cup of lukewarm water and 1 teaspoon of yeast. So I'm just going to sprinkle that over the top, stir it, and let it sit for a little bit until it rises. You want to see that yeast foaming up and becoming active. In a large bowl, I'm going to pour out that sourdough starter, add 5 cups of flour, and I've pre-measured all of the ingredients to make this process a little bit smoother and easier for you guys to follow. 2.5 teaspoons of salt, and now that my yeast has been sitting for a minute and it's dissolved and kind of starting to foam up, I'm going to go ahead and just pour that in here as well. And I'm going to move this over to my table, and we're going to knead this really well. And you will want to knead this for about 10 minutes until all of the ingredients are mixed really well. You have a nice, firm, stretchy sourdough ball, or dough ball, not sourdough. If you're noticing that it's just too dry, and some of this will depend on your sourdough starter and how wet it is, but if you're noticing that it's a little too dry, it's okay to add just a little bit more lukewarm water. Always lukewarm, not hot, and certainly not cold. At the same time, if you're noticing that it's a little too wet and too sticky, then just go ahead and sprinkle a little extra flour on it and keep kneading it. If it's easier for you, you can take this dough and place it on the countertop or on a table and just knead it that way. I don't have any trouble kneading it inside my bowl. I've just kind of always done it that way. So I don't place it on the table to knead it. I just knead it in the bowl. But you can certainly put it out on the table or countertop if that's easier for you. Here we are. It's been about 10 minutes, and you can see how beautiful and just together and stretchy, elastic this is. So I'm going to use this same bowl and just pour some oil in it. This is just sunflower oil, but you can use whatever oil you prefer. Roll it around, flip it, and cover it with oil so that it doesn't stick to my bowl. It's just going to make it easier to work with it a little bit later. And I forgot to mention, but you want to make sure that you're using unbleached flour for this. I don't ever mention that anymore because that's all I ever use, but you don't want to use bleached flour in this. After kneading it, you want to place it in a warm place. So I'm just going to place mine inside the oven and turn on the oven light. You don't want to turn on the oven because you don't want it to get too hot in there, but just inside the oven, turn on the oven light. That will make the oven just a little bit warmer, and then give it about 90 minutes until it doubles up in size. All right, it's been about an hour and a half, and this looks just beautiful. Look at that. It's definitely doubled in size, so it's ready to form into our loaves. This recipe makes 2 loaves, so I'm going to just carefully cut my dough in half, and you want to be careful with this. Don't punch it down. You don't want to let all that air out, but it is going to collapse some as you're working with it, obviously. Now I like to use a cookie sheet and a silicone lining. You can also use parchment paper or aluminum foil if you're okay with doing that, but you can make these into round rolls. You can make them elongated, just however you like them. I like to be able to use this for sandwiches, and so I kind of make these a little bit more elongated, not so much too big round loaves. And then once you form them, you can spray these with water and then sprinkle them with some flour, but I prefer not to do that. I'm going for a truly sourdough recipe that has just fermented flour in there for health reasons. Again, sourdough digests more easily. If you've watched my first video, then you know that. And so I don't want to put any flour on there that hasn't been fermented. So it's a little more gluten sensitive, if you will. So after I form my loaves, then I'm gonna just slice some slits into it, not too deeply. And then I'm going to set this to the side and let these rise for about another 30 minutes to an hour. You want them to be nice and fluffy, but keep in mind, I didn't work with them a lot, so they haven't flattened down a lot. So you don't want them to rise too much. If you do, then they'll get too airy, and when you bake them, then they'll just collapse and flatten out. So don't let them rise too much, but maybe 30 minutes to an hour. My loaves have been rising for about 45 minutes, and they are absolutely perfect. And I've preheated my oven to 425 degrees, and I'm gonna bake this for about 30 minutes. 30 minutes later, drum roll please. Look at those. They are so beautiful. Perfect. 2 perfect loaves. And as tempting as it might be to go ahead and just start slicing these right now, it really is best to wait. If you slice into them too soon, if the bread is still hot, then it's just gonna end up being really sticky and rubbery. So you wanna let these completely cool down before you start slicing and enjoying them. Now, if you have not seen my video on how to make your own sourdough starter, then I'm gonna go ahead and place this right up here so you guys can enjoy that. Thank you all so much for watching. Till next time, y'all have a blessed day. Bye-bye.